Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a really fascinating modern fable today. It's a story about technology, humanity, and a massive, bustling apartment complex called Skyview Heights. You know, we live in an era where we're constantly told that algorithms, sensors, and AI can just replace human effort. And honestly, it's a comforting thought, right? The idea that a machine can flawlessly guard our homes and manage our lives. But today, we're looking at a powerful story that totally challenges that assumption. It's called The Watchman and the Silent Alarm. Think of it like a modern Panchatantra tale, one that perfectly captures the friction between cold, hard technology and the irreplaceable warmth of human presence. Let's get into it.
Now we don't even need a watchman. Man, listen to that quote. This was actually said by a pretty arrogant resident of Skyview Heights, basically laughing at the idea of human labor after a new tech upgrade. It perfectly captures this very modern kind of hubris we see all the time, this absolute blind faith that just because a machine can do something faster, the human who used to do it is suddenly rendered worthless. As we unpack this story, keep this exact quote in the back of your mind. It really sets the stage for a dramatic wake-up call about what it actually means to protect a community. To really get the dynamics here, we have to grasp the sheer scale of this place. 300. That is the number of diverse families living in the 20-story tower of Skyview Heights. We're talking doctors, software engineers, business owners, teachers, retired couples. It was a massive, thriving, hyper-busy ecosystem. And sitting quietly right at the entrance of this towering hive of activity, an elderly watchman named Shankar. Now, in this environment of 300 fast-paced families, Shankar seemed incredibly small. To most residents, he was literally invisible. They just walk right past him, heads down, completely absorbed in their glowing phone screens. To them, he was, quite dismissively, just the watchman.
But let's actually break down what being just the watchman looked like in practice. Long before the sun even came up, there was Shankar, opening the gates. He'd warmly greet the neighborhood kids as they groggily shuffled off to school. He guided lost delivery drivers through the absolute maze of the complex so they'd find the right apartments. He watered the plants near the entrance, keeping everything looking nice and welcoming. He even took the time to feed a few local stray dogs that would patiently wait for him every single morning. I mean, this just brilliantly illustrates how his routines were invisible, yet utterly vital. He wasn't just guarding a physical gate, he was actively nurturing the community's daily rhythm, even if nobody bothered to look up from their phones to notice.
Then, everything shifted. The apartment association called a big meeting to announce a massive, high-tech security overhaul. And suddenly, the apathy of the residents totally vanished. It was replaced by sheer excitement. People were proudly boasting, "Our apartment is one of the smartest in the city." They were absolutely thrilled to be on the cutting edge. It was a huge status symbol for them. The residents literally applauded the announcement, completely convinced that this expensive, shiny new digital upgrade was going to bring them the ultimate peace of mind. As far as they were concerned, the era of the human watchman was officially over.
I mean, this upgrade built a total illusion of control. Just think about the capabilities of this new AI system. They installed smart CCTV cameras that never sleep. They added digital visitor registration to log every single entry. There were motion sensors in the hallways, automatic fire alarms, continuous AI-based monitoring, the whole shebang. The residents confidently declared that these cameras never make mistakes. And hey, on paper, they were right. The system tracked packages flawlessly. It recorded every visitor with pinpoint accuracy. But this impressive checklist led everyone to the completely false belief that Shankar was now obsolete. Shankar heard all their comments, by the way, but instead of getting defensive or trying to compete with the machines, he just smiled and went right back to his duties.
Now, here is where the story gets really fascinating. Sure, the machines were fantastic at tracking packages, recording visitors, detecting motion, basically collecting cold, surface-level data. But contrast that with Shankar's context. Shankar actually knew that the elderly grandmother in apartment 305 was deaf and couldn't hear the doorbell. He knew the little kid in 802 was terrified of elevators. He knew Mr. Verma, who is a doctor, always came home totally exhausted after his late hospital shifts. Guys, none of this information was written in any database, anywhere. These were vital, deeply human details you only learn by actually caring. The machine collected data, but Shankar collected empathy.
And then the ultimate test arrived. Picture this. It's a stormy Saturday evening, heavy rain, echoing thunder. At exactly 9 a.m., a massive lightning bolt strikes a nearby power transformer. Boom. At 9:01 p.m., the transformer fails completely, plunging all 20 stories of Skyview Heights into total darkness. At 9:02 p.m., the automated backup generator kicks on, but the sudden electrical surge causes a massive glitch, and at 9:03 p.m., one of the main elevators abruptly halts, trapped dead in its tracks between the 11th and 12th floors. In literally just 3 minutes, this highly praised, quote-unquote, infallible smart technology completely cascaded into a terrifying failure.
Let's look at the severe human stakes of this tech failure. Inside that pitch-black, suspended metal box were 6 highly vulnerable people. We're talking an anxious pregnant woman growing increasingly worried, an elderly man who is starting to struggle to breathe in the stuffy air, a terrified 5-year-old clinging to his crying mom, and along with them, 2 college students and a delivery worker. Panic rapidly started setting in as the reality of the situation fully dawned on them. They were stuck, high up in the air in the dark, and it literally felt like the oxygen was running out.
Meanwhile, outside the elevator, the brilliant AI system was doing exactly what it was programmed to do, and absolutely nothing else. The emergency alarms were ringing loudly. The security cameras dutifully showed that, yep, the elevator had stopped. Residents' phones were buzzing wildly with automated alerts. But here's the terrible irony of it all. The intercom inside the elevator? Completely dead because of the electrical fault. The maintenance team? Stuck in severe storm traffic a full 45 minutes away. Down in the lobby, residents were crowding around, shouting, panicking, arguing with each other. People were yelling, "Call the fire department," or "Don't touch anything." Despite all the millions of data points and instant mobile alerts, the technology completely failed to offer a single, real, physical solution. They were entirely helpless.
As the confusion in the lobby grew louder and louder, Shankar quietly slipped away. A few minutes later, he came back carrying this heavy, rusted metal toolbox. When a panicked resident demanded to know what on earth he was doing, Shankar delivered this incredible revelation. He calmly said, 20 years ago, before I became a watchman, I worked as an elevator maintenance assistant. Nobody knew, because nobody had ever bothered to ask him a single question about his life. Instantly, this revelation shifts the entire narrative of our story. We pivot from this chaotic, high-tech panic right back to calm, grounded, deeply human competence.
Let's walk through exactly how Shankar took control of this crisis. He didn't pull out an app, and he definitely didn't rely on the AI. He rushed up to the machine room with the building engineer, and instead of just violently forcing the doors, which could be super dangerous, he first carefully inspected the emergency release mechanism. He calmly instructed the engineer to avoid rushing, warning that even one mistake could cause the elevator to jerk suddenly and injure the trapped passengers. Working in perfect tandem, they manually and physically moved the heavy elevator just enough to align it safely with the nearest floor, and finally they pulled the doors open by hand. Shankar's physical, hands-on, hard-earned expertise literally solved the life-or-death crisis that the digital automated systems were completely blind to.
The trapped passengers stepped out into the lobby safely. The little boy hugged his mom. The elderly man sat down in immense relief. And the whole lobby erupted into applause. Later that night, the apartment association called an emergency gathering. The chairman stood right beside Shankar and delivered this profound realization. He said, "We invested in cameras, we invested in alarms, we invested in technology. But tonight, we were saved by a man whose greatest strength wasn't his uniform." In that exact moment, the residents' entire perspective on Shankar completely transformed. For the first time, they saw him not as some piece of outdated equipment, but as a living, breathing protector.
And this brings us to the core lesson of this modern fable. The chairman called it quiet responsibility. It's the act of working silently to hold everything together when it matters most, seeking absolutely no attention or praise. The crazy thing is, the next morning, everything for Shankar was exactly the same. He opened the gates. He watered the plants. But the residents? They had changed. They brought him tea. They actually stopped to thank him. They finally understood that the most valuable people in our society, the ones who actually keep our lives running smoothly day to day, are often the ones who are the most unseen. Which leaves me with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you. In our modern, hyper-connected lives, we surround ourselves with smart devices, notifications, and all these automated conveniences, and we trust the algorithms. But when the power grid fails, when the storm hits, and when the digital alarms finally go silent, who is holding your world together? Who are the unseen individuals, the Shankars in your own life, quietly executing their responsibilities so you can live yours comfortably? It's a question definitely worth asking yourself today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take a moment today to recognize the quiet responsibility happening all around you.